All right, if you have my notes, just go ahead and skip E, male hormones. And we're going to do the same thing by skipping the female hormones at the end of this chapter. So let's look at the female reproductive system. And we're going to start off with the ovaries. So this is showing an ovary right there. So these are the primary reproductive organs of the female. And the reason is they produce eggs and also the female sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Now, each ovary is surrounded by connective tissue called the tunica albuginea, which we talked about before. Now, what's different about you ladies than guys is that guys produce sperm all day, every day. Where you ladies are going to produce your oocytes really probably before you're even born. And so by the time you're born, you have about 2 million primary oocytes. But by puberty, most of these have degenerated, so you only have about 400,000 primary oocytes. And of those, only 400 to 500 will be released through ovulation. So let's take a look at the female internal accessory organs. We're going to start off with these guys here. Those are the fallopian tubes, so also known as uterine tubes or oviducts. So I'm going to go to this picture here. Here's showing the ovaries. Here is the fallopian tubes or uterine tubes there. So there's a pair of tubes leading from near the ovaries to the uterus. So the ovaries and the uterus are not directly connected. This can create some issues with sexually transmitted diseases and so on. But at the end of the tubes are these little finger-like projections that you see better over here, and these are called fimbria. These are extensions that cover over the ovary. So if this is an ovary, here's a fimbria covering over them. All right. So they are going to guide the egg into the fallopian tubes. All right. So the fallopian tubes is where fertilization will occur. All right. And the sperm can live in those tubes for up to 6 days. So if a woman has multiple partners in the 6-day period around her ovulation, it could be any one of those partners that could be the father of their offspring. And this is what keeps Maury Povich in business. Next is an ectopic pregnancy, and this is where the embryo implants not into the uterus. So here's the uterus, that's where implantation should occur. And so in most cases, the embryo in an ectopic pregnancy will implant into the fallopian tubes, but they can implant also into the ovary. They implant into the ovary, this is going to cause internal bleeding. If it implants into the fallopian tubes, it can cause that as well. But also, it can implant normally, not causing that bleeding, but it will grow in there. And the fallopian tubes are not designed to expand. And so eventually that embryo will start to tear and rip those fallopian tubes, which can be life-threatening to the mother. Next is the uterus. So here's the uterus right there. So this is a muscular sac-like organ where the embryo and fetus develop. And it is highly descensible. So uterus is typically about this big, and this can expand to accommodate the normal 6.5 to 9.5 pound babies here in the United States. Or it can expand to 10, 12, 13. And the largest baby ever born was 23 pounds. So looking at the parts of the uterus, this upper part of the uterus is called the fundus. The middle part is the body, and the lower third is called the cervix. So looking at the layers here, the outer layer is called the perimetrium. So it's an outer serosal layer. The middle muscle layer, made of smooth muscle, is known as the myometrium. And then the inner lining right there is called the endometrium. So it's the inner mucosal layer. So if there's no fertilization occurring, that endometrium will be shed as the menstrual flow, which we'll talk about. All right. If fertilization does occur, so let's get to this picture here. So fertilization is occurring there. So here the embryo will implant, as you can see, 6 days after fertilization. All right. So once it implants, it's going to secrete a hormone called human chorionic gonadotropin, so HCG. So HCG, what it does is it prevents menstruation. So menstruation is a shedding of the endometrium. All right. So by preventing menstruation, that allows a pregnancy to occur. All right, so just let you, we're going to come to this later on, but the endometrium builds up for implantation to occur. And if no implantation occurs, you shed that endometrium. If implantation occurs, that embryo is going to secrete HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin. That's going to prevent menstruation, the shedding of the endometrium, so the pregnancy can stay. HCG is what is detected in a pregnancy test. Okay, so let's move on. Let's go back to this picture here. So here is the vagina right there. There's the next organ. So this is uterus in cross section. Here's the vagina. All right. So let's look at the layers. So the vagina is a female organ of copulation. And looking at its functions, it's going to transport uterine secretions. It's going to receive the erect penis during sexual intercourse. And it's also going to provide an open channel for the offspring during childbirth. Looking at the layers, we have a fibrous layer, which is kind of hard to see, but that's going to attach the vagina to surrounding organs and tissues. We have a muscular layer, which is made of smooth muscle, and that's going to help to close the vagina. And then we have an inner lining there, and that inner lining is called the mucosal layer. And it's going to contain rugae, which they're trying to show there, little ridges there. And that's going to stimulate the penis during sexual intercourse. It also lacks mucus glands, and so it's lubricated by cervical glands found here, and also vestibular glands, which are found here. All right. One of the things that the vagina does do, though, is it secretes glycogen. Now, once again, glycogen are long chains of glucose molecules. In these glucose molecules are fed upon by a bacteria that normally inhabit the vagina. And so what that does by those bacteria eating the glucose is this produces lactic acid. And so that's what makes the vagina acidic. And so why would you want to do this is because by being acidic, this prevents infections from other organisms. So this is one of the problems that can occur when you ladies take antibiotics, is antibiotics are indiscriminate killers of bacteria. So they kill off good bacteria and bad bacteria. And so by killing off bacteria found in the vagina, that's going to change the acidity of the vagina and then allow for yeast infection to come in. All right. So let's take a look at the external genitalia. It's on the right picture there. All right. So first here is the mons pubis right there. So this is a fatty rounded area overlapping the pubic symphysis. Next is the labia majora, which is right there. And this encloses and protects the other external reproductive organs. All right. This is of the same embryological tissue that becomes the scrotum of the male. Inside of that is the labia minora. So there's the labia minora there. So these are flat longitudinal folds between the labia majora. So these are the same embryological tissue as the shaft of the penis, essentially. These are going to cover the vaginal and urethral openings. All right. Next is a vestibule, and that's a space right here. So the vestibule is a space between the labia minora. It contains the vaginal and urethral openings. Once again, vaginal and urethral openings. And it contains vestibular glands. And these are glands that are going to secrete a fluid that lubricates the penis and the vagina during sexual intercourse. Lastly, here's the clitoris right there. And this is a small protruding structure composed of erectile tissue. It is highly innervated, so a lot of nerve endings in it, and it's sensitive to stimulation, and it contributes to female sexual arousal, all right, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Now let's move on to the mammary glands. So these are the milk-producing glands of the breast, and so if we look at this picture, this is showing mammary glands that are inactive. The bottom picture is showing activated mammary glands, all right? So mammary glands are actually found in both sexes. They are modified sweat glands. They're inactive in males because they don't produce the hormones necessary there, all right? So the hormone that causes milk production is prolactin, and then oxytocin is also necessary to move the milk through those duct systems.